My worst lawsuit ever faced disaster before we ever filed papers in the courthouse. Hi, my name is Carr Ferrell. I'm a Silicon Valley patent attorney. Welcome back to my channel. Well, this misadventure got started in the usual way. I got a call from a client in Europe saying, "Hey John, we've just been sued for patent infringement. We'd like to have you come out and give a presentation to the board on how we're going to defend and what the strategy is going forward." The board is super concerned about the risk and the public relations issue. Now, obviously, this was before Teams and Zoom, and it was pretty common in those days to get together to meet in person regarding legal matters. So for the next 72 hours, the team built a litigation notebook. This included a sample response, strategies for the case going forward, our theories of the case, and a lot of information, a deep dive into the plaintiff, the other company, as well as members of the board, what their weaknesses were with respect to other litigation, and just how we were going to attack the soft spots of the opposing company. Also included in this litigation notebook were areas of our weakness, places where we were vulnerable in case the litigation escalated and additional claims were brought. Now, once we had the litigation notebook finished, we put 6 copies of the litigation notebook, these were 2-inch binders, into a litigation bag. I boarded the flight to Europe around midnight. It was already running late, and of course I'm going to carry the litigation bag with me. It's super sensitive. I don't want to let it out of my sight. I don't want to check it. It would be an absolute disaster if this bag were to get lost or fall into the wrong hands. So as I boarded the flight, I took my aisle seat and I shoved the litigation bag in the overhead bin above me. I took out one of the notebooks because I was going to use it to brief along the way, review my presentation, and get ready for the meeting. Because of the delay in the flight, I was going to have to already go straight to the company and give my board presentation, so I wanted to be ready. Things were otherwise going pretty well. We got to the East Coast and the flight attendants served some kind of dessert. It was ice cream with chocolate topping and some coffee. Just about the time the desserts came, though, the pilot came on and said, "There's some bumps up ahead and we're going to ask everyone to buckle their seatbelt." Well, no sooner had he finished talking and there was a loud bang and a bright flash, and all of a sudden the inside of the plane went completely dark. I honestly thought the plane had blown up. It was shaking violently and the overhead bins had popped open and stuff was just pouring into the aisles. There were people screaming, babies crying. But then the shaking stopped, and a few seconds later, the lights started to come back on in the cabin. It seemed like forever, but eventually the pilot came on the intercom again and said, "Well, I guess we're through the bumps. If anybody's injured, please turn on your call lights and we'll try to get some help to you." Well, as I had mentioned, the contents of the overhead bins had fallen out of the overhead bins and into the aisle. And to my absolute horror, my litigation bag had fallen out of the cabinet and had popped open, and the notebooks had been spread down the aisle. At least 2 of the notebooks had popped open and the papers were fluttering about among the seats. As lawyers, we all suffer from these occasional "oh dear me" moments when the tables get violently turned and the carpets just seem to get ripped out from under you. It happens on direct when one of your witnesses says something stupid and incriminates your client, or a stack of undisclosed toxic waste violations show up just at the closing of your client's commercial building. Stuff happens as a lawyer. But this is one "oh dear me" moment I just didn't see coming. Dozens and dozens of pages of my client's most sensitive documents being spread down the aisle of a 747 as far as I could see. It was only a short time after the pilot's announcement, apparently the plane had been struck by lightning, that the flight attendants began moving up and down the aisles checking to make sure that everyone was okay. They were climbing over the contents that had fallen out of the bins from above. I noticed I was wearing a chocolate sundae and a cup of coffee on my white shirt. There was a lump of vanilla ice cream on one leg of my pants. The flight attendants began putting stuff back in the bins and people were sorting their clothes and restuffing broken suitcases. I made a beeline for the loose leaf pages, scooping them up like $100 bills on a highway after an armored car wreck. My urgency attracted lots of help from neighboring passengers, and eventually I collected every single page of all but one of the binders. One complete binder was missing, and despite the help from the flight attendants and the passengers nearby, we couldn't find the missing binder. It's really hard for me to overstate how important it was to find that missing binder. But to have a lawsuit strategy floating around in the public is just unthinkable prior to litigation. In the moment, I knew that the consequences of me leaving that flight without the notebook were incomprehensible. It seemed inconceivable to me that in a random population of passengers, someone would have seen this notebook, grabbed it, and decided to leave the plane with it, especially after the circumstances we'd just been through. Well, I remained on the plane until the plane emptied and stayed with the cleaning crew looking for the notebook. And mercifully, it turned up tucked under a seat in the back. It was almost in pristine condition, except for the first few pages were covered in child's drawings in crayon of houses, flowers, trees, and airplanes. One was a crude child's drawing of an airplane being hit by lightning. I sat on the plane for a moment with my notebook, so grateful the disaster had been averted, but also trying to imagine what on earth were the parents thinking, letting their kids draw in my litigation binder. I scooped up the rest of my stuff and raced to the taxi stand in front of the airport, heading to my client's, arriving just in time to put on a fresh shirt and tie and get a couple of binder copies made. I know I still smell like coffee and looked like hell, but I do know the board members that were there knew how grateful I was to be with them sharing my notebooks. And I'm grateful to be here. I'll see you on the next video.